Welcome to the motherfucking we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What appears to be a PSA by way of the World Boxing Organization that reads, "Please be advised that in the event any WBO champion, male or female, tests positive for any banned substances, it is not necessary that the WBO demonstrate intent, fault, negligence, or knowing use on the fighter's part, considering that it is the fighter's duty to ensure that no prohibited substances enter his or her body. Fighters are fully responsible for any prohibited substances found to be present in their body," what is a more traditional stance to doping in the sport of boxing than the stance the World Boxing Council took in reference to Alicia Baumgartner. Being honest with you, I think the WBO had her in mind.
What makes you say that?
The part that says it is not necessary that the WBO demonstrate intent, fault, negligence, or knowing use on the fighter's part.
What they're saying in layman's terms is, it's not their job, and it's not their responsibility to prove that you knowingly took something. All they need to know is that something is there.
How it got there and why it got there is the fighter's responsibility. It's not the WBO's job to play detective or to try to act as a mind reader to understand why a banned substance is present in a fighter's body. And as stated, I think they made this PSA with Alicia Baumgartner in mind due to the World Boxing Council stance that even though a banned substance was found in her system, the test doesn't prove that she knowingly ingested it, that she knowingly took it.
And on that predication, they decided not to strip her.
Which creates a gray area because the test is not a mind reader and it's not a time machine. It doesn't take you back in time to show you whether or not someone knowingly took something. All the test can tell you is what is there. And if you use this defense to absolve a fighter, a male fighter or a female fighter, of culpability in this scenario, it then becomes applicable in most every scenario or almost every scenario moving forward. It sets a dangerous precedence. The WBC, more than some other sanctioning bodies, has been flexible and lenient, perhaps more lenient than the other alphabet organizations when dealing with these scenarios and situations. They pardoned Luis Nery when he tested positive for a banned substance, and Ray Vargas, more famously Canelo Alvarez and Luis Ortiz.
And now Alicia Baumgartner,
who I think the WBO had in mind when they made this PSA. Now, to my knowledge, the WBO didn't strip her, and they're not about to. But if they're not about to, then why are they saying this? And I think the reason they're saying this, that should another one of their champions, a male champion or a female champion, test positive for a banned substance in the future, should not expect to get the same consideration from the WBO that Alicia Baumgartner just got. I.e., don't get it in your head that just because we let her off the hook, we're gonna let you off the hook. Moving forward, the fighter is fully responsible for any prohibited substances found in their body,
which is the more traditional stance that alphabet organizations have taken in the past up until now.
Whatever your explanation or reputation is, you're standing in your community. However you're viewed, so long as there's a banned substance in your body, you assume full responsibility of how it got there, because you're the one in charge. The WBO will not act as detectives or a forensic team, investigating the particulars of a given case on the predication that the fighter claims to be innocent while their anti-doping test says they're guilty.
I think that the WBO's patience has been perhaps worn out by all of this, and a big part of the reason that this situation, this case is different than some others is because the Michigan Unarmed Combat Commission never actually suspended Alicia Baumgartner.
If you're a boxer or you want to box, you need a boxing license. And you don't go to the alphabets. You don't go to the WBC, the WBA, the WBO, or the IBF for a boxing license. You don't need to go through them to get a boxing license. You go to the local commission. And this fight between Alicia and Christina was held under the auspices of the Michigan Unarmed Combat Commission.
Ones with the real power to issue out suspensions, well, it's the local commission, not the sanctioning bodies. I think the sanctioning bodies fall in line with whatever the commission decides. But if the commission decides they're not going to suspend a fighter,
the alphabet organizations may then decide they're not going to strip that fighter.
Why?
If the fighter lawyers up, things could get messy. You revoke that fighter's championship status at a time when they haven't been suspended, their boxing license hasn't been revoked. Who says that fighter that's just lawyered up doesn't turn right around and sue you?
This is just me bouncing ideas around, but I get the distinct impression that a part of the reason the Alphabets didn't strip Alicia is because the local commission didn't suspend her, and because they didn't suspend her, that left their hands tied.
And it would seem that the WBO aren't happy about that, and they're issuing out this warning, this PSA, for future fighters that may test positive for banned substances. Don't get it in your head that because she got that consideration, you'll get it too. In the future, full liability falls on the fighter for whatever is found in their body.
It's not about the weight bully, I'll be honest. Look, when I faced Josh Taylor, we did 12 rounds, and he fought dirty, and the referee allowed it. He fought dirty in all those rounds, and he was putting all his 168 pounds on my body. Big dude, by the way. Tallest guy I know I will ever face, and biggest, like, dude was a giant at 140. I can see why Josh Taylor beat so many of these guys like Regis Prograis and Jose Ramirez. So, you know, when it came to it, it's not about the weight bully. That's a myth. It really is. And I think if anyone really knows, it's going to be Paulie Malignaggi right there.
To have this conversation, you need to know what weight bullying is or what it's supposed to be. What are the benefits? And weight bullying, that vernacular, that jargon, that practice, is best described as when a fighter, big fighter, very big fighter, sheds a lot of weight in order to campaign in a certain division. Say a guy like Josh Taylor, who Teofimo just mentioned, a guy who could be walking around anywhere in between 154 to 168 pounds in between fights, but he boils down to 140. Goes into a camp, boils all the way down to 140, then the night of the fight, rehydrates anywhere in between 160 to 168.
But why would a guy that size boil all the way down to 140?
The theory is that the reason the guy's doing that is because he wants to have a size advantage over the other fighters at the weight, that he wants to be bigger than those fighters and weigh more than those fighters the night of the fight. A size advantage, a weight advantage. Now, how egregious you think that is or isn't, I'll leave such judgments up to you, but that's essentially what the accusation is. The accusation of weight bullying. That here you have a guy that by all rights should be campaigning at a higher weight, but he wants to campaign at a lower one so he can throw his weight around.
Yeah.
Teofimo is saying that weight bullying is a myth, and he's using Josh Taylor as an example.
Yeah.
On the premise that Josh, the night of the fight, must have weighed around 168 pounds, whereas Teofimo is comparatively smaller, but he still beat him. And he did beat him. He beat him in good fashion.
Seen one or two fighters in recent memory accused of being weight bullies. Devin Haney, David Benavidez.
But I myself tend to agree with Teofimo Lopez. I do, that the act of weight bullying, it's little more than a myth, because what you're talking about is essentially something that the entire sport of boxing is doing. And if the entire sport of boxing is doing it, then it's hardly an advantage. It's hardly an advantage if almost everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Take Devin Haney, for example. In his last fight with Regis Prograis, he was said to have rehydrated up to 165 pounds, even though the contest was at a contracted weight of 140 in the 140-pound division. Does Devin Haney rehydrating to 165 the night of, does that make him a weight bully? And I wouldn't agree with that. I would say no.
Devin Haney is anything but a bully in the ring. He doesn't fight that way. He doesn't throw his weight around.
Not a bully-style fighter. He's a cerebral fighter. He's a guy who uses the jab and stays behind it, creates space and keeps distance, uses the ring, moves around, stays on his toes.
Moving lateral and walking his opponent into punches, setting traps. He's a cerebral fighter, not a bully, irrespective of what he rehydrates to the night of a fight. You could hardly accuse him of being a bully.
And if what he rehydrates to the night of a fight bothers you, need I remind you that Devin's not doing anything that the rest of the division isn't doing. He's not doing anything that Regis Prograis himself wasn't doing.
If you're gonna criticize Devin for that, you'd have to criticize a lot of fighters in a lot of divisions, because it's a common practice in the sport.
I'd sooner accuse a fighter like David Benavidez of being a weight bully, a bit of a weight bully, before a Devin Haney. Because where Devin Haney stays on the outside and keeps distance, a guy like David Benavidez tries to close it. He bears down on you. He does throw his weight around. Devin's an outside fighter, David's an inside fighter. A volume puncher, a pressure guy with a bully-like style, so I would sooner accuse David of weight bullying than Devin, but the reason I don't is because this practice, it does have its drawbacks.
Yeah.
It does have consequences.
Yeah.
It's not a failsafe to win any and every boxing match, far from it. See, David is now doing at 168 what Jarrett Hurd was doing at 154. Jarrett was very big for his weight, very big. God only knows how that guy was boiling all the way down to 154. So the night of a fight, he'd get huge, he'd blow up. But eventually, his luck ran out.
Consequence of doing this is that over time, your performance starts to suffer for it, your power starts to wane, your punch resistance.
That starts to go, and just making the weight becomes more and more difficult over time, to where you're leaving more and more of yourself in the gym and bringing less of yourself into the ring, into the fight. It's not a victimless crime. What happened to Jarrett Hurd at 154 until one day what was an otherwise durable fighter that could take a shot, his punch resistance was all but gone. I believe that could happen to David Benavidez if he doesn't move up in weight and move up soon, because he has been at 168 for a very long time now, and I don't imagine that weight is getting easier to make, though the idea that he's a weight bully.
Maybe to some people. Maybe it depends on who you ask, or maybe it depends on how the fighter fights.
Such a common practice in the sport, though I do understand that some fighters, depending on how they fight, may benefit more from it than some others. I don't lose sleep over it because eventually that luck runs out. Eventually that backfires. Boxing match, you are intended to use your characteristics as a fighter and your physical attributes to your advantage. So if one of those attributes is your weight, then I see nothing wrong with that. It's fair play, so long as you can make the weight.
How is using that as an advantage different from using your speed as an advantage, or your power, your mobility, your athleticism? It's all fair play.
See the point that a lot of people are making, that in some instances it is a lot more brazen than it is in some others. So like I said, eventually it backfires. It's not a failsafe, and if you go doing this for too long, you are gonna pay for it.
However, if you really wanted me to say, there's only one guy on my list, and that's on my hit list, and that's Terrence Bud Crawford. I believe the reason why being so, we're only one weight class apart. He's the kingpin of the 147 division. I am the kingpin of the 140 division. So why not, right, Ariel? Shouldn't the best fight the best? However, I'm gonna say it here. Terrence Bud Crawford likes to go after guys that are not the same or they're injured. And I'll say it right here. A lot of his fights that he has had, he has faced injured fighters.
You mean like you did when you fought an injured Vasyl Lomachenko?
Now he wants to face someone. What are the chances of Saul Canelo Alvarez? Saul Canelo Alvarez is on a decline,
And what do you think Josh Taylor was when you fought him? Most people thought he had already lost to Jack Catterall. Some would say that he was in decline when you fought him.
Saul, if he likes it or not, it is the truth. He's had his rise. Now he's starting to depreciate. We could see it. He's getting heavier, getting hefty, real flat-footed. He's not as light as before. So who's going to want to jump on that? Terrence Bud Crawford.
Like when you jumped on a naturally smaller Vasyl Lomachenko who had a nagging shoulder injury?
Because it looks good.
I mean like this hollow call-out. Yeah, it looks good and it sounds good that you're calling him out. All the while, you don't actually expect this fight to happen. That's the only reason you're doing it.
He beats the face of boxing. However, you fought a guy that's on the decline.
Josh Taylor was on the decline when you fought him. He is on the decline.
You know, Terrence Crawford doesn't face, look, I mentioned it, Jose Benavidez. He was scared of Jose Benavidez. Couldn't even figure him out the first 5-6 rounds.
I mean like the time you fought George Kambosos and you couldn't figure him out?
However, he still did his thing.
He did, and you didn't. You got beat, little guy.
But the guy had a shot leg, literally. Okay, Errol Spence, he had his, his eye.
His eye wasn't bothering him when he fought Yordenis Ugas. When he fought Ugas, that didn't stop Spence from beating that guy and winning that fight, but it's an excuse when he fights Crawford.
Yes.
I don't know how to say it. The cataract eye, okay, situation. But we're talking about an Errol Spence that went through a car accident. We're talking about Errol Spence that went through situations in being in that weight class for so long.
Like Josh Taylor was at 140 pounds for so long.
At 147, the guy that goes up in between fights at 190. Okay. And then we got, who's the third one that I used to mention? Kell Brook, same thing with the eye. You know, and this guy thinks he's this big guy and the real guy, tough guy. Man, you're not a tough guy. You just fight soft guys that make it seem like they're tough guys just so that you could be the guy. But he's no guy.
Oh, you're the guy who got sat on his ass by George Kambosos and lost your belts in a fight that you were supposed to win. The guy who was seen on camera questioning himself after stinking out the joint with Sandor Martin, who dropped you 2 times. You're the guy, not Terence Crawford, not the undefeated 3-division, 3-time Ring Magazine, 3-time Lineal, 2-time undisputed. You were never undisputed. You had a WBC franchise belt that evaporated immediately after you lost it.
There's so many boxers in America, based out of America, have an obsession with presenting themselves as snake oil salesmen or used car salesmen.
Do you think the audience doesn't know that you're only talking shit because you don't expect the fight to happen? Because you know you're still under contract with Top Rank. He isn't. He left Top Rank rather unamicably, and he went as far as suing them. Even if the lawsuit didn't go anywhere, that's besides the point.
Who's supposed to pay for a fight between you and him? Top Rank, I would assume.
But that's just it. You don't expect Top Rank to pay for that fight because Terence and Top Rank parted ways unamicably. So you're just talking shit to be talking shit. You're talking shit so that the journos write articles about you and so the content creators make videos about you. You're just trying to stir the pot.
Making an ass out of yourself while you do it because nobody actually believes you.
I don't believe you. I believe if Terence were in the same room with you, you'd shut your fucking mouth. We wouldn't hear a peep out of you.
For fuck's sake, this is the guy that clams up when Arnold Barboza raises his voice to him.
Did you see him at the Golden Boy promotion show? When Arnold Barboza confronted him, what did he do? He clammed up and he walked away. Left his team to deal with the mess. Left his team to answer for him. This guy don't handle pressure well. He's a mess. But the fact that he's trying to drag Terence's name in the mud, knowing that he's not going to fight him, and knowing, not serious, he's just talking shit to be talking shit. We knew then, immediately after the Spence fight, that both Terence and Errol, they would be leaving the welterweight division moving forward. They'd be moving up. Why do you think Teofimo's talking about him?
Because he doesn't expect the fight to happen. He doesn't expect Top Rank to pay for it, and he doesn't expect Terence to stay at 147. He himself is still down there at 140.
More transparent, why aren't you calling out the fighters at 140? Why aren't you calling out Devin Haney? Why aren't you calling out Subriel Matias? I mean, even the winner of Romero versus Cruz would make a lot more sense for a call-out than the guy you're calling out, but that's because your call-out is hollow, and you're full of shit. You better take care of business on Thursday with Jermaine. Don't talk all this fucking shit just to get embarrassed.
Because you've been embarrassed before.
The worst thing that could happen to this little head case is he actually gets that Crawford fight, but we all know he doesn't really want it.